hundreds of toll houses along the canals, most of them private homes now because canals have changed. Now the canals were built for industry, horses pulled the boats, and then engines were invented, road and railway transport took over. We still use the canals a little bit for industry today, but mostly we live on them. Now please don't stare into anyone's home, but look around you at our boats. Most of those are permanent homes for people living on board. Most of the boats around us are permanent homes for people living on board. Look at the shape of them. This long, narrow shape is because a lot of canals are much smaller than this one, very narrow, so our boats are built narrow to fit them. That is why they are called narrow boats. Now please don't call our boats barges, and please don't call them houseboats. We hear it all the time, it's quite a common mistake, so I'll forgive you, but they're not. What you're looking at, they're narrow boats. And the narrow boats you're looking at, they are modern, they've been built for people to live on. But remember, canals were built for industry. A working narrowboat would be the same shape. Most of a working boat would be for storage of whatever they carried. The families had to live in a very small cabin at the back of the boat, very, very small, and no modern comforts, no bigger than a cupboard. Now look at our modern boats each side. They have been built as homes, so the whole boat can be used to live in. Now we've got plenty of room in our kitchens, bottled gas for cooking, coal and wood stoves to keep warm in the winter, water tanks with fresh water for showers and toilets. Toilets are not emptied into the canals. This is where we live. We have pump out stations and services for that. We have engines now instead of a horse. Engines make electricity. Think of all of those electric items and modern gadgets you've got. We can have all of those, but we can travel, take our homes with us, and there are more than 23,000 of us living on the canals. Different lengths, different heights, different widths. Now, because the tunnel is too wide, what they would do is put a plank of wood across the front of our boat. The plank of wood stuck out each side. The two people legging the boat had to lie on that. By the way, quickly glance on the left. That's as far as the horse could go where the gates are. So, a plank or board of wood placed across the front of our boat. Look at the front of the boat again, and imagine that is across the front. And the two people legging the boat would be lying on that plank of wood, one on each side, just to make it a bit more dangerous for them. The boat moving slowly. Then at the entrance, those two people lying on a plank of wood, one on each side, could leg it or walk it along the side walls, pushing it along the side walls with their feet. That was dangerous, and it was hard work. This is only 250 metres. There are tunnels that are nearly 6 kilometres long. In English, 6 kilometres is nearly 3 miles. Imagine having to leg the boat for 3 miles. At the end of the tunnel, they stopped legging the boat. The horse would be waiting on the towpath on the left, and they'd continue with 1 horsepower, 1 horse for each boat. Now we can carry more than 30 tons in Jason. They only needed 1 horse to pull the boat. The water is taking the weight. That's why I can pull this boat on my own, even if it was fully loaded. So could you. I frequently do. And then engines came, and road and railway transport was much faster, so they stopped using the canals. They started to fill them in. We nearly lost them, and then over the years a lot of them have been reopened. Most of that work is being done by volunteers. We can still see where horses' ropes rubbed into the edges of the bridges, and I want to show you rope marks on this next bridge, but look at the bridge now. Follow the arch to the left. On the left side is a yellow no cycling sign. Now when we get to the bridge, keep your eyes on the left corner of the bridge under that sign. There's a plant across there, so it's not easy to see. But we'll see rope marks at the other end. There are grooves worn into the left corner of the bridge under the no cycling sign. Now think about this. Those gates and railings on the left were not on the canals back then, and the horse was... And before we had electricity, and before we invented refrigeration, we imported blocks of ice. Now those blocks of ice were cut from frozen lakes in Norway, Sweden, and some from Canada. Along our canals there were ice houses where... Now if you look up on the right, you'll start to see some big houses, up on the right. Now Regents Park itself was built in the early 1800s, 19th century. Regents Park was designed by the architect John Nash, very famous for that style. He designed Regent Street, parts of Buckingham Palace, Clarence House and much more, but not the houses you're looking at. They are less than 25 years old. The houses on our right, on the right, they've been built more than 100 years after the rest of Regents Park. There are 7 of them. They were designed by Quenlin Terry, who was commissioned to design them in a similar style to the older John Nash houses. Rebuilding the top using those original columns, 2 of them were turned round. Look at on the left, towpath side. First column and last column on the left. Can you see rope marks? Down the bottom of the first and the last columns on the left. Okay, so you've got the rope marks, yes? If you go over to those 2 columns, you look round the other side, you'll find that they've got rope marks on both sides of the same column, which should be impossible. Before they rebuilt the top of the bridge, they turned those 2 columns round. That's why they've got rope marks on both sides. A major accident, the boatmen were killed. The explosion was heard right across London. People thought it was an earthquake. And that's why we call it blow up bridge.